I found out that it is not what they say about you that limits you the most, is that you might believe them. There were many, many, many people who said that I would never be anything. I just chose not to be one of them. Bishop T.D. Jakes. In this week's episode of the Why Not podcast, we have honest and challenging questions to answer. Alex provides very valuable insights into decision making, personal ambition, and how to build your life your way. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome my dear friend Alex, a true force for good in the digital marketing world. As a founder of Keystone Digital Services, Alex has been redefining digital marketing, building on nearly a decade of experience driving impact across industries like tech, health, and e-commerce. His journey includes a dynamic role as VP of Client Services at 97th Floor, where he led an elite team of SEO, PPC, and content specialists. Now also a professor at Mountainland Technical College, Alex is committed to innovation as he is to inspiring the next generation of digital marketers. His mission? To grow, to help people grow, and to help the world grow. Good afternoon, Alex.
Good afternoon, Noah. Excited to
How
be
are
here.
you?
It's gonna be sweet. I'm good.
I'm excited to have you on the podcast, on the show. Thank you for joining the Why Not podcast. I love the festive look. You're brightening my Friday. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
it's always funny to hear like an introduction like that because, and I'm sure we're gonna go probably get to this at some point, but like I just I just imagine people listening to this and be like, force for good, yeah, right. And then other people who are just be like, yeah, absolutely, a force for good. A person is just trying to make things better. So I definitely do view myself that way. I try to do my best. So that was the only part of the introduction. I'm like, everything's pretty accurate, pretty accurate. Elite team. Yeah, I like the word elite. Yeah, absolutely. But force for good. Some people have different opinions on that.
That's fair. I mean, I think I got this idea from you, which is if you're the hero of your own story, that means you're an enemy in somebody else's story. And that's just life.
Happens.
And that's
It
okay. And
happens.
I've really been trying to embody that a little bit more and trying to focus more, why am I an enemy to myself? I should start being my champion and stop, tearing myself down. So I think you're a force for good. Hopefully you do too. If there's other people out there
Thank
that
you.
disagree, that's great. Disagreement is beautiful, but I'm
That's
excited to
fine.
get to talk to you a little bit more.
Absolutely. Great. Love it.
Awesome. Cool. So I'd like to hear your story from what context do people need to hear or understand to get the real Alex? What context do they need to know to understand the real Alex?
Context to understand the real Alex. Like that. This is something I talk about with people fairly regularly is, and I'm not good at this. So just want to get that out there. Like, is being really easy on people because if you try to analyze yourself, think of how little we actually know about ourselves. I make up numbers whenever I do this. I say, for example, I've lived, let's make the math easy. I'm 35 years old, so whatever 35 times 365 and a few leap years in there is. So I've lived 10,000 plus days. How many of those days do I remember vividly? Maybe like 100 of them. How many of those vivid days do I remember like extremely well? Maybe like four or five of them. So in reality, like of myself, I probably know myself 1%
Mm.
on a good day. And so if I can know myself as good at 1%, I know way less about every other single individual. Even people that I love and care about, I probably know them about 0.5%. All the thoughts going through their head that they never say or iterate to anybody, I have no idea. So in order to like know my context, I don't want to be like, oh, that's a foolish question. It's more like it's really hard, just period. But you need to know the context of like how I grew up primarily. Lower middle
Right.
class, not bad. Like I wouldn't say I had like a bad upbringing. I think it's really easy to like make up stories as you get older where you're like, oh, we had it so bad. We had it so bad. We had it so bad compared to a lot of people, but then I also had it really good compared to a lot of other people. So grew up lower middle class in California, the youngest of nine, so constantly trying to prove myself. that I was
Mm,
better than other people who had already accomplished so much more than me simply because they've had more time on this planet to be able to accomplish those things. And
mm,
fairly constantly feeling I've come to realize this lately, and I'm still not great at combating it, but like a pretty strong like victim mentality of
mm,
blaming other people for my problems as opposed to taking accountability for things when I need to. I take accountability relatively well, but when like something bad happens that I think is unjust, it's automatically somebody else's fault because I'm the just one in the story. So coming to terms with that. So the youngest of nine, feeling like a victim a lot of times when things like don't go my way. And what was the other thing? Low middle income family. I think that will like give you guys a little bit of context.
fantastic. Thank you. That's very helpful. So with that context, then, explain to me your story of how you've gotten to be where you are now.
Yeah, honestly, like if, I think a lot of times whenever I tell this story, do you want me to go primarily the professional route or personal route?
Either.
Well, I'm
I'm
gonna
like this is the Why Not podcast, just focused on helping people see other perspectives and have good, meaningful questions and insights. So it can be personal, can be professional. There are very few parameters in terms of how you feel your story should be told.
so professionally, a lot of that's going to be a life of convenience.
Mm,
A lot of times taking what I would consider to be the easy road. In my personal life, a lot more out of my control. I feel like there was a lot more things in my personal life that just happened that made things struggle. So throughout like my personal life, I would say there have been obstacles I've had to overcome due to my own like choices, and then having to deal with the consequences of those choices. And then from a professional standpoint, making the best of just trying to do what everyone wants to do, which is make money. Not everyone, but I need to make money. I need to have a family. I need to do like these very common things that we're told we have to do. So professionally, it was just like, all right, I got into BYU so I get kicked out of BYU Idaho. I have to wait a long time to go on my LDS mission. Like if you're not chaste, if you're not morally upright, you don't get to go on an LDS mission, even though I think that's probably the place that you want to send people like me like immediately as opposed to them having to go through all of the guilt and
yeah.
embarrassment of like like freaking Eli Johnson. We're playing old man basketball. He's like, so when are you going to go on a mission? Well, I have a 1 year waiting limit before I can even go. So I guess I need to volunteer that information to you now. So that level of guilt, I don't blame Eli
Yeah.
Johnson. That's the question you're supposed to ask. Why aren't you on your mission? You're supposed to do it at 19. Why aren't you on it? So dealing with that, coming back from my mission and getting into BYU, just be like, oh, thank the heavens that I'm able to get into a cheap, inexpensive college so I don't have a lot of debt.
Mm,
Most of my decisions are just primarily based on financial safety more than anything. All right, you're at BYU. What are you going to do? Well, how can I graduate the fastest from here? Because I need to start making money. Communications, awesome. People have always suggested I do advertising. I love writing jingles. I like writing music as a person. I still love writing music and listening to music.
fantastic.
Advertising seemed to make the most sense. Boom, get into the advertising program. Boom, I'm going to not go the creative route because that takes an extra semester to 2 semesters to graduate. Out of there in 3 years.
Wow.
Boom, go get the job, go do the thing. Went to RPA for like my first real big boy job. It's a traditional agency based out of Los Angeles. I absolutely love living in LA, but I realized way too expensive for how much money I was making. Moved back to Utah, where my wife was waiting for me. Get a job at 97th floor, just move up the ladder incredibly quickly. So I consider myself one of the lucky ones who was able to move quickly and receive financial gains that other people it took them longer to
Mm,
realize.
mm,
So once again, very much a life of convenience. Why did I move up really quickly? Networking. Networking and showing off the skill that I have, which was the ability to communicate with clients, which is the exact reason why Keystone is as successful as it has become. We're good at marketing. I'd say sometimes we're great at marketing for our clients. We always get results. We always succeed with whoever we work with. But the main reason that people stick with us for as long as they have, now having had clients, so Keystone's been around a year and a half now, been around a year and a half,
Wow.
and we already have clients that are on month 14, month 16. Um,
Congratulations.
and the
That's a
reason
good
they stick
milestone.
around is I am there for them. I care, which is a really important thing that people need to know about me too. The reason that I ever get mad about things is because I care about the situation we find ourselves in, and I feel like someone is being taken advantage of this situation, and I want to make it right. Is that a good way to live? I do not know, but that's how I've lived my life, and it's been going pretty well since I got fired. A lot of stress, a lot of work that has to be done, but the fruits are delightful.
That's wonderful. And congratulations on making it to that year and a half mark. And I'm happy to hear your clients are enjoying working with you. And thank you for sharing your personal story there. And so much can be said towards the amount of vigor it takes to not quit or give up in a lot of those situations. Especially like you mentioned, like you really, a lot of your path followed this seeking financial stability. I think you are not alone in that at all, both in terms of how you have arrived where you are now, especially as you're an entrepreneur now. A lot of entrepreneurs have that type of path, and I think it says a lot about your character for your commitment to push through the challenges, but also see the beauty in your professional and personal life. So thank you for sharing that story, your
Yeah,
story.
absolutely. Yeah.
I also wanted to maybe dive a little bit deeper into two things. First, I wanted to ask you a little bit more how you have created your agency, but then also your ability to find find the courage to start it. Because I like you mentioned you got fired. I think there's a portion between that and you starting Keystone that I had the privilege of knowing you during that time. And it was very inspiring to me, but I'm sure going through it, it must have been very painful and challenging. And so I'd like to know how you found the courage to really start your own business, which now, of course, is succeeding and thriving year and a half later.
Yeah, so it was because I do want everyone to know as I share stories, these stories are how I remember them.
Of course.
This is how I remember things, and then also getting verification from other people who went through similar things that I did. So like as I say these things, I
Mm.
don't want it to come across as I am on
Sure.
somebody. I
Yeah.
know that at one point you can say a thing
Yeah.
and then 6 months later that thing is no longer true, but you never had the conversation that it was no longer true. I've
Mm.
dated people. Guess how many people I've told I love you to? Probably like 14 people. Guess how many I've probably
It's a
told
lot of
14
love going
people.
around.
Yeah, tell why do you think I'm dressed like this? Why do you think I have long hair, baby? I've told a lot of people we're going to be together forever, and then it
Mm.
ends up not happening.
Yeah.
So what the hardest part of getting fired was when I came home, told my wife, I'm like, it was fine. I didn't think I shed a tear over this. I think she cried more about it. I don't even know if she cried about it, honestly. I'm sure she's just like, whatever. But coming home and her saying this conversation I had had with my boss, she said, I thought they said they would always find a place for you.
Mm.
Things change. There was a conversation where like we will always find a place for you here. I go and talk with other people who went through a similar thing that I went through.
Mm.
Exact same thing was told to them. Like, we will always find a place for you. Just kidding. Once you can't make money for us, we're going to let you go. It's a business. It's not a family.
Yeah.
It makes total sense that they would do that. But I never wanted to put myself in a position where someone could lie to me like that again. Not lie to me.
Mm.
That's the wrong thing. Reassure me, where someone could
Mm.
reassure me like that again. I wanted to have the control. So right after I got
Mm.
fired, finances obviously like, oh, we got to make money. We have to make money. I was just talking with my financial planner earlier this week. He's like, you always just like have, you always expect the worst. He's like, dude, you're fine. I don't know why you like keep thinking like something bad is gonna happen. I don't know. I just that's what happens when you grow up in middle lower class. You always expect the worst to happen. Also, if you grow
Mhm.
up believing in the prosperity gospel, that's another thing we could talk about.
Yeah, we're gonna dive into that in a minute, but please continue.
I immediately get a job probably within like 3 weeks or something like that for a company that someone who I respect worked at. Went through the interview process. There were some red flags in the interview process, but I was like, whatever, I need the money. They offered
Yeah,
me a job, pretty decent compensation. Great. I knew it wasn't going to be long term, but I didn't
sure.
think it was going to be as short as it was. So like
Mm,
very like first 3 days, just hearing the owner like yell at people about presentations. I was like, me, I do not
mm,
work at a place where people like get physically
mm,
angry and emotive at people.
mm.
So I work there. I actually want to tell you the exact days because it always makes me giggle. My start date was March 16th. Wait, no, 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 no. It was not that. My start date was, come on, Alex. Come on, Alejandro. My start date was March 15th of 2023. I quit March 20th. So I worked there for 3 whole days. And then I came home. A so vivid memory of we had a St. Patrick's party at a friend's house. Got there at
Nice.
like 6, like super late because like we work long hours there. Like we work hard here. Um, I saw my son. I was just like, I don't want this. I don't want to not see Teddy for 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get yelled at. So I talked with my brother, who we were considering like starting an agency in 2021. I was like, you be the money, I'll be the work. And he said, okay. So that's what happened. And so I went in on the 20th after having a conversation with my grandma, who encouraged me to be happy. And I quit. And then, so that's the middle of March. Keystone starts April 1st of 2023. We get our first client technically in March of 2023. It's just someone that I brought over. I was working freelance at that time. Get our second client in May, get our third client in July, get our fourth client in September, get our fifth client in September, I think it was November, and then we just have been adding clients here and there since then. I think the biggest learning from that is like we've been lied to our entire lives. Like it's it's hard. Like don't get me wrong, I'm like it's hard work because like your livelihood is dependent on the success of your clients that you have. Whereas like at an agency, you're kind of
Mm,
insulated unless a ton
mm.
of people lose multiple clients at a
Yeah.
singular time. You're pretty like protected. Or something like, I don't know, COVID happens, some sort of cataclysmic event like that.
Yeah.
So that's like something that is like a concern of mine. But now, like 16, 8, however many months we're into this now, I'm just like, just keep going, man. And it's actually the reason we started another business that encourages people to do exactly this, like take leaps, stop working for other people. Don't let other people have control over your freedom and your livelihood. And it has been fantastic. I know it's not for everybody, but I think it could be.
Mm,
I think everybody could do it, but some people it's just, you know what? I'm happy making $40,000 a year. I work my 8 hours a day, and that's totally fine. Like I hate
mm.
saying fine, like that's great for them. If they're happy, that's all that really matters to me.
Yeah.
But I also know as someone who's stupid, I know how easy it is to create something of your own that leads to generational wealth possibilities for my children and my children's children. Apocalypse excluded is limitless.
That's inspiring.
I feel like incredible. I feel very cocky saying that out loud, but
No, it's not. I don't think it sounds cocky. I think it sounds confident, and I think that comes from a series of refinement, and I think that's then confidence placed in, as Gen Z says, based or very secure experiences. And I think that's fantastic. I really do think having watched you create your own agency and excel has been exciting to watch. I'm sure it's exciting and very stressful on the inside, but I think you're right. Like the potential there is limitless. The opportunity is limitless. And once you take ownership of that, it really expands not only your opportunity, but your perspective and mindset as well. You mentioned earlier that you struggled with a victim mentality, which is the opposite of what I'm hearing right now, which is you're like, you know what? I don't want to be yelled at. I like, and quite frankly, a lot of those work environments there can be quite damaging. They often might pay well, they might not, but regardless, like emotionally, there's more to life than just what you're paid. And if for you being happy is priority number one, then it makes sense. But you took ownership of that and you took ownership over figuring out how to start a business and doing the work and the networking and everything, and now you're running it. And all of that to say is there's a very, to me, a very glaring theme of ownership on your part, and that's opposite of a victim mentality. So tell me maybe how either you overcame or continue to overcome the victim mentality that you said you struggle with.
Not over it, man. It's like it's still in my head.
Mm,
Like, like though I'm not saying these words out loud, like I'm telling the story. I want to be like a hero in my story. Like if I
yeah.
just took all of the thoughts of that I've had over the last 18 months, like you'd be like, oh, I get what you mean. Like, yeah, there are times, homeboy, where you're just like, dude, F them, F this for what they did to me. Screw them. Like I like see posts and I'll be like, that's not true. That's a lie. That's not actually real. That's not how it is. I did all those BS posts too, blah, blah, blah. Like
Yeah,
those types of thoughts that I have in my head. I don't vocalize all of those types of thoughts frequently, but
sure.
they're there. They're
Yeah.
inside of my head. So I'd say a lot of like the victim mentality is literally mental
Mm,
as opposed to a lot of my actions per se. So
mm,
I do try to have quite a heavy amount of accountability for things that are in my control and even for things that are outside of my control. Not to sound like an awesome or good person again. It's just even like in my times at 97 floor, I'm just like, man, I should have just stayed in my position that I had previously. It like blows my mind. Like looking back on it, like I put a
mm.
notice. So I quit August of
Okay.
2021. Yeah. So and homie of the year over here, 4 weeks notice as opposed to like the normal 2 weeks, right? So like they could have
Oh,
plenty of time to fill
wow.
like the position that I have. Am I a hero?
You are a hero.
Yes, I'm a hero. But what ended up happening, and I'm not sure why this decision was made, honestly, like looking back on it, I'm grateful for it because I essentially had a very easy year and a half making more money. But
Mm,
a brand new position was created for me that was too good to pass up. And I was like, yes. Here's the irony though. That's when my brother and I were thinking about starting an agency. And so they
mm.
gave you this like Godfather offer. I'm just like, I got to do this. I don't have to be on client calls nearly as frequently anymore. It's just like whenever someone's super pissed off, whatever. And I get to just help ease the burden of client work because client work is not
Mm.
the easiest thing in the world. It can be pretty
Yeah.
lonely when you're a leader. And I gave that up for starting my agency a year and a half earlier. So there's like this part of me that's like, oh man, it was awesome. Like it sucks to get fired, right? But hey, you get your severance, you get this, et cetera, et cetera. There's part of me that also has regret of just not standing my ground, just being like, no, I'm going to do my own thing and push forward. Who knows what would have happened? Maybe it would have been a colossal failure. What was really great about it, and I can say this now that it's been long enough, is by saying yes, it allowed a lot of my clients who were taken over by someone else to leave
Mm.
for a year to elapse, which is the required amount of time legally for that to elapse, so that Keystone could start with the pretty significant book
Nice.
of business. So there's like that part of me that's like, yeah, so you waited 18 months. You about 4 or 5 of like your awesome clients who are spending really decent money left. The year elapsed, and so you could just start Keystone way faster. So I think both those ways. Because if I had left right at that
Yeah.
time, I think legally I couldn't have worked with anyone for a year. Who knows how litigious anyone would be in a situation like that? But think about that a lot. I don't think I answered your question. How do I get those? How do I not demonstrate the victim mentality? I think I still have quite a bit of it in my head. Like there are still days where I'm not going to name names, but people like live rent free in my head, and I absolutely hate it because it does no good for anybody. They haven't thought
Yeah.
about me once since I
Mm,
left. They have other
yeah.
things to worry about. So what's the point?
Mm.
But having a really busy business makes it a lot easier. Like this like fortuitous. We just signed like 2 clients this week. That's part of the reason I also
Congratulations.
couldn't meet yesterday. So we signed 2 more clients, and the more busy I get, the less time I have to think about them. So that victim mentality is like going away. Time
Yeah.
heals all things. So I know eventually it'll just be like a forgotten memory, and then you just move on to the next thing.
Well, and I think there's like an important distinction though, and then I want to call out from what you said because you mentioned like you still have the victim mentality like in your mind, like when you're thinking about the day, when you're going throughout the day, like it's hard not to fight those thoughts, but in terms of what you do, in terms of your action, you're not living that way. And the ability to just take action and move forward and not be caught up in whatever your mind is racing on, like that's critical and hard work. I think there's a lot of people that will write self-help books or will have, I mean, I guess their own podcast where they're focused on just sitting there and really thinking deeply and hard to figure out how can I remove this mentality from my brain forever? And I think your approach is often much more successful in that as you just start to do things and you stop making excuses and you start putting in the work, taking action, you're going to find that your life doesn't reflect that mentality you're seeking to overcome. And I think
There.
that's a powerful lesson.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, there definitely has not been like the self-pity probably only lasted about 2 to 3 weeks. And like that's
Yeah.
really my only regret of not starting things sooner. It's always like,
Yeah.
I wish I would have done this sooner is probably my most common regret. And I think
Mm.
that's at least I eventually did it. So I'm okay with those being my regrets.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Fantastic. Very, very cool. Very cool perspective. I want to ask you because you teach at MTech Mountainland College, and you also have said that you think everyone can be an entrepreneur. And that, of course, it's not for everyone, but it can be for you. And so, like, I kind of feel like there's it's almost like a dichotomy there between education and doing your own thing. And you're able to be right in the middle of that. So explain to me how you view that and what you think would provide a lot of value in that context.
The reason that I think anybody can do it is I just have seen way too many people who are not that intelligent do it. Like, so it's not an intelligence thing. Like a lot of time, like myself included, it's what you're saying. It's like it's
Mm,
an effort and relationship building thing. I don't need to like call out people specifically, but there are people that I have worked for or people that I have seen own companies, and I'm just like, how?
mm.
Or I'm just like, how did you do this? Like, I'm incredibly impressed that this
Yeah.
went as well for you as it did. And to me, it seems like it just comes down to taking that leap of faith. I
Mm,
fortunately I did not take the leap. I was pushed off the cliff and forced to make the best of it. So you have to at some point take a risk,
mm.
and then you just start doing all the things that you think that you should be doing, and you like learn along the way. The irony of anyone can start a business is I also need employees to like help me out with stuff, but we also have freelancers. Like we have people who are doing exactly that, where like they have their own book of business of people that they work with.
Mm,
Keystone being one of those people that they do help us out with client work, and like if they're ever like,
mm,
yeah, I don't want to work with you anymore, it's easy because they're not tied to like one company, and like
mm.
they're in control of their financial decisions. Like there were so many clients when I was at 97 Floor that looking back on, Keystone would never take on. But when you're that big of a business and you have that many people on the payroll, I get why you take on a lot of times really bad human beings who then abuse people. And it's like, all right, well, let's just get the
Yeah.
$20,000 a month, and then they'll be gone in 6 months. But hey, we'll have $120,000 for it. Well, yeah, the company gets $120,000 for it, but the individual who took the abuse the entire time does not.
Mm,
So I want people to have that control, the control where it's
mm.
not dependent on somebody else. And I'm sure if anyone like listening to this was like, oh, you could have like quit at any time, or oh, you could have like come to me at any time and said like this or this issue. I will just say this. We did. And when I say we,
Mm.
I'm intentionally saying we for multiple people. And
Yeah.
it would be ignored because like, sorry, we're a business. We got to make money.
Mm,
But that's why I want people to be in control of that. You know what clients none of my employees have to deal with? Anyone that's an a-hole, because we get rid of them really quick. Or if I have a really good relationship with an a-hole, I will work directly with them, and it's on my shoulders as the owner to deal with them,
mm.
as it should be. Like I think there's a lot of people who like just get lucky and never have to do actual client work. Like if you go and look at people's LinkedIn, you
Yeah.
can identify those people really, really fast. Like, oh, you did client work for like a year. No wonder you think it's easy. Like I did it for 6. It's a
Yeah.
lot more difficult. It's a lot more difficult than you think it is.
Yeah.
I want people to have that control. And so how do people do it? I tell my students this like all the time. Like, you have zero responsibilities right now.
Hmm.
You have an internet connection. You can sell a service easy. You can start a window washing company for less than $100. You can start a car detailing company for less than $1,000. You can start all of these different what we call unsexy businesses at
Hmm.
unsexybusinessman.com. You can start all of these different things for low cost, and you can start making money. I don't know if you saw one of my LinkedIn posts recently was about this car detailer, Cole, who started his detailing company when he was 19, and he's already doing 15 to $20,000 a month. And
Wow.
he's like, I'm just booked out, so I can't actually max out beyond that. I was like, oh, get a new truck,
Yeah.
get a new truck, and then have someone else work for you, and then you pay them less than what the job is worth, and now you're making $360,000 a
Yeah.
year, blah 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 blah. And he's 21, and his
Wow.
company is already making, I can't do the math in my head, 200 something, like $250,000 a year.
Wow.
Where's that going to be when he's 25? Where's that going to be
Yeah.
when he's 26? And all it is Cole is accountable, and he's not a weirdo. Weirdos are going to struggle in this world. Like, you need to be able to have, especially in the service industry, you need to be
Mm.
able to communicate with people in a normal way.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm really great at rambling and giving really long answers. I just believe that anybody can do it because I've seen too many stupid people do it. Just as simple as that. Myself included, I am
That's
not that smart of a
fantastic.
person. I know I'm at least normal intelligence level. Like, I know that. So I don't want to pretend like I'm poo-pooing on myself. I'm not actually stupid. But I know there are people who are way, 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 way smarter than me. Who are
Mm.
making way, 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 way less money than I am because
Mm.
they have decided to go the route that they have decided to go. Which, once again, I'm not saying it's bad,
Right.
wrong. I'm just saying if I ever hear those people complain that they don't get to do the things that I get to do. It's you can you can do them. You just have to do it.
That's very empowering. That's very empowering. And I do think you're being a little too humble. I've gone to you for advice, so I think you're definitely a smart guy, but I think it says something that you don't need to be the smartest person in the world to make an impact and especially make an impact for yourself and your kids. Like I don't know, like a value that I have is I care a lot about providing and creating a future for my kids. I got 2 children, they're fantastic. And a lot of my life priorities are oriented towards them and oriented towards what I hope to be able to do for them. And I think it's very empowering to hear your story and to hear like what you're sharing that you don't have to almost accept the default mode of you have to be super smart to make any kind of money and you just have to grind it out till you get there. And while still acknowledging the importance of ownership and hard work and education like that, that is very unique and I appreciate you sharing that because that's very impactful to me.
Your kids are gonna your cute little devil kids. Well, sorry, I should say your handsome little devil of a son, and then your adorable daughter. Like, they, I'm happy that they have parents like you because it could be not the case. It could be worse. I'm very happy that they have you and Mary.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. And likewise for your son. Both you and your wife are fantastic. And it's been really cool to see you be a dad and to be part of the dad squad. Like yeah,
McDonald's, it's a blast.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, actually let's talk a little bit about fatherhood, if you're okay with that. I think that ties in nicely to what we've been discussing. As you think about your son and everything that he's gonna go through throughout his life. And let's say he's on Spotify and randomly looking up weird old archives of this weirdo. Like, it's important not to be a weirdo to be an entrepreneur. If I figured it out, that's when I'll start my own business. But that's the one piece I can't seem to figure out, man. It's like I walk in the room, it's like this guy's a little weird, like he's a little oddball, but it's all good. Let's say he's on Spotify in the future, listening to some weirdo talking to his dad. What would you want him to hear?
Um, hmm, it really is like it goes back to my grandma's advice that she told me literally 6 months before she died. That led me to like go down the Keystone route. It's like
Hmm,
you have to be happy. Be
hmm,
happy without impacting other people's happiness, but also don't care about other people's happiness because they don't care
hmm.
about yours. Just like most people. Like if you think
Yeah,
about it, there's
that's
8
true.
billion people in the world. So yes, I think there's 4 billion people who don't care about my happiness. I think that's safe to say. Most people don't care about my happiness. So just finding the things that you enjoy doing that bring you like fulfillment and the least amount of stress. I want you to like feel
Hmm,
uncomfortable at times, but I don't want you to feel stressed out. Money isn't everything. You can do stuff that you love with very, very little amounts of money. College isn't everything. You can do lots of things that you love without going to college. What is important though is freedom. So you do need to do the things that allow you to have freedom, whether that be freedom from vices or
hmm,
that be freedom from the actual like jail, freedom from jail, or freedom from people. Because there can be abusive relationships that lock you down so that you aren't allowed to grow and do the things that you love to do. That's something that I love about my, hopefully he sees this in our relationship. My wife and I's relationship is like
hmm.
within reason, obviously, right? Like if, for example, if my wife comes to me like, "Hey, I want to kill your mom," I'm not gonna be like, "All right, yeah, go kill my mom." But like we have a relationship where it's like we don't tell each other no. Like if there is something that we want to do that is going to give us fulfillment, go do the thing that's going to give you fulfillment. Let's figure out how to make it work if we need to have childcare or something like that.
Hmm.
So I hope he learns that so that he stays out of those potentially abusive relationships. Because where I see most things happen, it goes back to that freedom, those three things that I already mentioned. Like, I want you to be free. I don't want anyone to own you or for even the sense of somebody
Hmm.
own you. Also, I love you. So I think that's probably what most parents are going to say that they love them. But as far as like lessons that I want you to learn, freedom. Have freedom. That's how life is meant to be enjoyed.
Hmm. Powerful, powerful stuff. Thank you for sharing that. Moving aside from the advice for your son, I want to pull out some of the things you said there if you're okay with that.
You, everything's okay. Like there's literally
All
nothing I
right.
won't talk to you about.
Appreciate that. You mentioned like freedom from abusive relationships, and I think that can include with your boss, with your business, with your company, coworkers, clients. You mentioned some companies keep really bad clients on for money, and that destroys culture and trust. I've been in that situation. In the long term, either you're maybe top performing employee or your most lucrative client or the job that you've always wanted, but now it sucks, or like your personal relationship, like you're finally dating the person of your dreams and you find out they're not that person. Like it's important to prioritize your happiness. And like you said, not everyone is going to do that. Just don't let one of those people be you. And
So
yeah,
I really don't like, so I know this is like going to the extreme. Like I really don't
sure.
want to be a Netflix documentary. And so that's
Mm,
why like the freedom thing is so important to me. I don't want it to be like, oh man, got killed by a jealous lover, got killed by like whatever. I know that's like crazy, but I've been watching a
sure.
ton of true crime recently. I love unsolved mysteries and those types of shows.
Tune in soon
I
to hear True Crime with Alex and Noah. I'm just kidding. Not at all.
I just really don't want like I don't want that for him. And like a lot of
Yeah.
times, like the red flags are there. Like it's very
Mm,
obvious. Like yeah, we should have picked up on this a little bit sooner. So as far
yeah.
as relationships, getting out of those abusive relationships as quickly as possible could save your physical life. And I think
Yeah.
with client stuff, it's going to be your emotional well-being, although tons of people are committing suicide. So
Yeah.
corporate ladder, corporate structure is killing a lot of people too. So
Yeah.
also, I just found out sitting down is bad for you. So stand up, everyone. The longer
There you
you sit
go.
down, the sooner you're going to die, apparently.
That's actually very true. There was a study done where they monitored two different groups of people that sit down. One was truck drivers, and the other I think was just like an office job. I don't remember what type of job. And they had one focus group that they just stood, so they either were standing and driving or standing at the desk, and the other was when they were sitting down in those environments where naturally you would sit down. You don't really stand typically to drive a semi or bus. And they found that just that change dramatically improved the health of those that stood, that were standing. It's
What are we doing right now, Noah?
I know.
This conversation is literally killing us.
Dear. Hopefully,
But sorry,
hopefully not. Yeah.
sorry, I interrupted you though, as you were talking about abusive relationships.
No, sorry, just lighthearted topics for this lovely afternoon. What I was gonna say is it reminds me, and I forget who said this, so if anyone on the internet and social medias knows this, please let me know. But it's essentially this quote where he says, "A lot of people have not believed in me. I just made sure that I wasn't one of them." And I
That's a
think,
tasty quote. That's
yeah,
tasty.
yeah. And it's impactful. And like you, I did not come from money. I also had a religiously challenging childhood background, and I found a lot of strength in being able to actually believe in myself. I think for the longest time I was the person that doubted myself first so that nobody else could. And when you do that, it's easy to play small. It's easy to play victim because I mean, that's what you have. If you're a victim to yourself, then that's easier sometimes than being a victim to anybody else. And as I have tried to challenge that and to begin making progress towards who I want to be, but then also actually being my own champion, like it's been a dramatic 180 for me personally. And that of course has impacted me professionally. My professional life is significantly improved since I've changed that mentality and just realizing like, yeah, I'm gonna have enemies. There are gonna be people that think I'm not a force for good. There's gonna be lots of those. That at the end of the day, my job is to make sure I'm not one of them.
100%. Like it's really easy to like get inside of your own head of caring about what other people want or expect of
Mhm.
you, and then you just get there's this David Foster Wallace. I don't know if you've ever listened to This Is Water,
I
but
don't think I have.
spoiler alert, David Foster Wallace ended up committing suicide. And
Mm,
I love This Is Water. But
mm,
if you listen to This Is Water and if you try to live the way that he is talking about in that, you understand why he ended up taking his life. Pressure of always looking on the bright side, looking or not looking on the bright side. That's not what This Is Water about. It's like the empathy that he teaches
mm,
in that speech, where it's like this person who just cut you off in traffic, they could have done it because of X, Y, or Z reasons. This person who is going so slow in the checkout line
mm,
could have this thing going on. This person just found out that they were diagnosed with stomach cancer. Like, yeah, if you live that way, you're going to struggle. Like
yeah,
that is going to be heavy lifting in terms of emotional intelligence, if you will.
mm,
I don't even know if that's right. Emotional intelligence just means regulation of your own emotions, but empathy,
mm,
that level of empathy is like
yeah,
really, really taxing and tiring. So I'm not saying don't be empathetic. I just think my favorite thing is just moderation in all things. If
mm,
you are moderate, I'm not saying you have to be. So, for example, let's use alcohol as an example, like a
yeah,
really, really taboo thing. I'm not saying go drink out like, oh, right, I like alcohol's here. I need to be moderate with that. I don't drink now. I have to drink. It's just
yeah,
if you do the thing, you need to find moderation in it.
yeah.
that is what I mean there. Drinking water. You need to be moderate in drinking water. You also need water to survive, so drink water. You need to be moderate in how you consume food. You need to be moderate in exercise because anything that you take to the extreme is one of two things, going to kill you or burn you out and make you tired, and then you're going to be harder on yourself for it. So even with empathy, you should find moderation if you decide that you're going to go the empath route, because otherwise you're just going to be drowning in what could be or the sorrows of other people, which I think would be incredibly taxing, which is why I choose not to be empathetic. No, I was kidding.
And I know
Uh,
that that's mean because I'm an
that's
empath.
why,
No, I'm just
yeah, and that's why I hate everybody. You were saying too, man, like I think the reason that I get so frustrated about like people living rent free in my head, like from like my previous job, is going through
kidding.
like a similar thing religiously as I'm sure that you have gone through and many other people have gone through. Like it was like tiring going through that, and I
Yeah.
just want it to be over. And like I remember, I think it was 2019 where, or 2020, 2019 when like the religious thing. So I left my religion in about 2013. 6 years of like, man, I can't believe they did that. Man, I can't believe they did this. Man, I can't believe I did that. And I'm seeing those like same type of habits
Yeah.
with like my old company. So I don't want that to take 6 years. In fact, I
Yeah.
wish that it wouldn't have taken me, and I don't think I'm fully over it. Like I
Sure.
still think I have a little growing I need to do. Like I want the grieving process to be over, and so I need to be more engaged in something else to get over it faster. And I do think like I am
Yeah.
close to it. Like I'm pretty close, just being like, it's all good. Just a little bit more.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And yeah, I remember. So I recently left the same religion. We were both members of the Mormon community, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I left probably about 2 years ago. And it was really hard, still is hard. And I remember, I think I said something in passing to you. I was like, "Did you see this?" I was pissed off. You're like, "Oh no, like I haven't been keeping up with the news for years now." It's like,
Yeah,
and I told my wife Mary, I was at the end of that day, I was like, "I want to get to a place
I
where
can't
like,
wait.
yeah, right, yeah." Like I want to get to that place where like I'm not even thinking about it. It's just not because I like to your point, like you want to be happy and you can't do that by holding on to all the resentment and hatred and anger. And I think when you're told you have to forgive everyone no matter what, is very challenging to then realize actually you get to decide how you manage that on an individual basis. You can choose how that grieving process looks for you, how long it is. It doesn't have to be completely ignored or almost gaslit, to use a TikTok term. I'm just kidding. And that's very freeing. So I have been trying to implement that from you, and I think you'll be able to do the same. What I will say from the professional side, I had a coworker that I did not like, and we both disagreed on a fundamental level, and it impacted both of our jobs depending on the decision. And the only way I was able to move past that was I actually started wanting him to win. And because at first it was like
Hmm.
I'd see, oh, he had the success. I'd be like, oh, he didn't deserve that. Oh, he should. Man, I need to see him fail right now, feel justified. And then I was like, why am I doing that? Like he doesn't care. Like he's not gonna give a damn if I don't want him to win. Like he's gonna work on winning. I'm gonna work on winning. And I was like, well then why am I wasting that energy? And so then I said, actually, you know what? Next time I see him have a success, I'm gonna be happy for him. And sure enough, he had a success again because I work with very smart people, and I have had the privilege of doing that throughout my career. And so I was like, you know what? I'm happy for you. And I actually reached out to make it a point to myself. Because like, I want to tell this guy that I am happy for him and proud for him to be winning, and that that doesn't have to detract from my own success. And
I
then
love
I was
that.
able to get over it immediately.
I love that. Good idea. I really like that.
Well, thank you.
Now they just have to win at something. No, it's kidding. Just kidding. Like
It's
that,
harder
right?
than it
To your point.
sounds.
Well, no, like to your point though, like no matter what, there's always going to be wins. There's going to be wins no matter what. So like the problem in my head, I'm just like, I know that's BS. But is it? I don't actually know. I'm not there anymore. It's just
Mm,
it's a habit that I built up of like when I would see it in the past when I was there, and I'm like, oh, this is the thing that we do to like
Mm,
make things look like they're all nice and gravy and groovy.
mm,
But who knows? Like it could be like legit this time. So just, and who cares if it's not? To your point,
mm.
it doesn't even matter. It's just celebrating it regardless. I like that. That's a great idea. I'm a
Uh,
very bitter
uh,
person.
Me too. I sound super happy. My last guest on the podcast is like, "Wow, you're so nice." I was like, "I try. I certainly
Really?
try." I was gonna say that's
No,
why
no,
I
I
need
meant
Alex to
really
come
like
on.
I was pretending to be Noah right there. Anyone listening?
Sure. That's why I needed to have you come on here so that I can paint a real
Humble
world
you.
picture. Yeah, thank you.
I can humble
Exactly.
you. Here, I am here for humility because that is what I am known for, is my humility, obviously.
More your
Oh
ability to
gosh.
help other people have humility. Not just kidding.
Touche. Touche.
Well, I appreciate your time, bro, and thank you so much for talking with me. I feel like I forgot, like, for a minute there, I wasn't even thinking, oh yeah, we're doing a podcast right now. It's like, oh, we're just hanging out. So I appreciate your willingness to be so open and to share such impactful advice and your experience. And there's a lot to be learned from you and from the insights you've shared. So thank you so much, and thank you for being on the Why Not podcast.
For sure. I appreciate you, Noah. Like you've always been a homie regardless of like you're an unconditional love guy, and that's something that I really appreciate, and it's really powerful in making us feel guilty. Not that you intentionally try to do it, just like yesterday when we were trying to get this thing like going,
Oh.
I'm like I feel so effing bad because Noah is such a homie. I was like, okay, I'll make it. I'll for sure. I know I can make everything work the way it needs to today. So I appreciate your patience with that.
Of course. Yeah, no worries, and thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure, man.
gonna I'm gonna ask you the concluding question for my podcast, which is, what does happiness mean to you? We talked about it a lot. I want to know Alex's definition of happiness.
My gosh, this is a I don't even know if I like this, but having control over my life, being the one person who is like recognizing that I am the one person who is in control of things. If I can just like give it like an example of this, like I've been really nervous about some tax stuff that's been going on, and then I just had this epiphany, like hire someone. If you're unsure, get someone to look at it, just give them the money and get it taken care of, as opposed to just like stewing on this thing. So recently, it's like happiness is you can do things. So just do those things. You have the ability and the control to do those things. And that has been really nice over the last couple of weeks, leaning into that.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for the impact you drive in the world. And yeah, have a good rest of your day. Thanks for being on the Why
Hey,
Not
thanks.
podcast.
Yep. See you, Noah. Have a good
See
one,
ya.
man.
Thank you. Bye.